Good evening, everyone. Guys, am I audible?
Yes, sir. Good evening, sir.
Yes, sir. Good evening.
Audible and visible to all?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. So, the idea of the session today is to have an orientation on how to start our preparation for interviews and uh, to understand that what kind of questions do they usually ask, because it's such a subjective assessment process. So there is no fixed pattern to it as such, but previous experiences have given us an idea as to what kind of interviews, what nature of conversation can we expect, right? So we'll be covering salient points related to interviews, commonly asked questions, and also uh, how do we start our preparation, how do we go about it. All right, what I'll insist on, in fact, is that let's make it as interactive as possible rather than this being a monologue. So let's keep it very conversational, very engaging, so that it can be very specific to your queries and your questions. So, in the pre-interview stage, if we try and understand some of the important points, so usually interview calls come in January, and the interviews are scheduled from February to April. It can be any time. All right. So, uh, it can go as well as April or even May in some cases. Say XLRI. XLRI usually schedules its interviews deep into April and May. And interview is almost a mandatory, necessary requirement in all the colleges. And along with it, depending on the college, we may have a group discussion, we may have a written assessment test or AWT or extempore or group exercise or case study. So varies from college to college. And usually, almost in all the colleges, these processes are clubbed together. So they are not distinct process, or there is no elimination there. So everyone who sits for a GD is entitled to sit for an interview also. And the panels are also almost always the same. So the impression that you make in the first round carries on well into your second and third round of the process. We are not really usually expected to carry our resume, because the forms that they ask us to fill is very comprehensive. So all the information, everything is captured in that form. So resume is not necessarily a requirement. And also understand, this is not a job interview. So they usually don't have veto power. They can't select or reject. They can only grade you on a scale of 10. And I have been on panels of some of these B schools. So my understanding is that the way panelists look at candidates is that the standard deviation is very low. So most of the grading is done within a very narrow range. So very rarely do we see an outstanding performance or a very low score. So most of the candidates get their scores within a very small range. So from our perspective, our intention is less to create an amazing effect, to leave a mark, so to say, but more to blend in, to fit in, to match their expectations. That is more of an objective rather than really stand out, because that rarely happens. So in an effort to do that, sometimes it can be very counterproductive that we try to do something exceptional and it might actually fall flat. So that is how we look at the interview. Now, remember, it's a 15-20 minutes process, usually 2 to 3 panelists, offline or online. We don't know this year because COVID, all of them shifted online. But last couple of years, we are seeing that there is a shift towards offline again, in-person interviews. So it will, I think, vary a lot from college to college. and 2 to 3 panelists is the par. Now, if it's a 10, 15, or 20 minutes interaction, and uh, they are planning to dissect your entire life, ask you on every single thing that you have done and what you plan to do in the future. So it's unlikely that they will spend too much time on any one thing. So another thing related to interview we must understand is that we should not worry too much about what they may ask, what kind of questions are they likely to ask, or what if they ask us this or that, how will we answer? Because no one topic is likely to last for a long time in an interview, and you are all intelligent enough, well educated, and well spoken, that you can manage to hold a conversation for a couple of minutes. And what is the agenda of the conversation? We, our life. No one can know more about us than ourselves. So they may put up an act that they're not happy with what they are seeing, or the answers are not credible or convincing. But we must have the maturity and the sense to understand that on this topic, we are the masters. We know more about our life, our thought process, our career choices than anyone else can ever do. So we'll always have an opportunity to explain or justify, right? And so on. So, therefore, I think right from the onset, we should not have any apprehensions about what they may ask. Okay, so our preparation should be independent of how someone may take our answers or what counter questions they may ask. We should never, ever be uh, worried or fearful of counter questions or subsequent questions. All right. Okay. Now, most of the questions asked in the interview, and again, because people are still joining, so I'll just again go back to what I said earlier, guys. I would strongly insist, let's make it interactive. So at any point of time you want to interject or ask something, right, or add a point, feel free to do so. So all questions asked in the interview can broadly be divided into 4 groups: personal questions, academic and work experience related questions, current affairs, GK type of questions, and others miscellaneous questions. So personal questions is basically related to us, our life and everything. So these questions would be the most common one which is asked is, tell me something about yourself, introduce yourself. Then strengths and weaknesses, achievements and failures, why MBA, long-term and short-term goals, hobbies and interests, values and principles, family, family, a role model, okay, and similar type of questions. I would in fact say that other such questions that you may have heard of or read of, कि interview में पूछा गया था, will be some combination of the questions that I have just mentioned, or at least our answers will be derived from these questions only. So the language, the phrasing of the question may change, but it's still the same question, right? So ultimately, every question, personal question, is largely about either they are asking us to pitch ourselves, sell ourselves, one, or they are asking us to explain ourselves. Why did you get low score in class 12? Why do you have a year gap? Why did you switch from commerce to science or science to commerce? Why do you want to do MBA after BTech? Why don't you continue in your job for a few more years, go for executive MBA, right? Or they would give us an opportunity to sell ourselves, to present ourselves as a better candidate. So strengths, achievements, why should we select you? What can your peers learn from you in the campus? All these questions are an opportunity for us to highlight attributes about us, which uh, which would impress them, or at least make them consider us as one of the better candidates. So I've always believed that if we prepare one broad answer or one long essay or story about our life, a brief autobiography, so to say, I think that will, in a way, cover every single question that they are likely to ask. Okay. So as I said, it's either about selling ourselves or explaining our decisions, right? More or less, that is what it is. So when we are trying to sell anything in this world, whenever we sell a product or a service or an idea or a plan, we always keep it down to 3 or 4 unique selling points, USPs. What one should avoid doing when one is selling is try to get too much into details, over explain, over elaborate. So that is a folly that most amateur salesperson are guilty of. So here, and since we are selling an elite product to a high-end customer, a high-end customer, so even more so, it becomes important that we keep it very sophisticated, right? The level of discourse has to be maintained at a higher level. So what kind of attributes or personality traits will help us stand out? What makes us look different? What would be considered impressive in this case in an interview platform where the context is management education? Okay, guys, am I audible to all? Voice issues or network issues? Huh? Anything? All
Yes, sir.
good?
Yes, sir, you are
Yes,
audible.
sir. Yes, sir.
Okay.
Audible.
All right. So as I was saying, the thing is like, how do I know that what are the key points that I need to underline in an MBA interview, which is a very different kind of interview. So if I have to again simplify the whole thing, and it requires simplification because sometimes we get carried away by some advice or idea, and other times we are too caught up with it's too much of a clutter. We find it difficult to sort out things. So let's keep things very simple. So if I have to give you a premise of how to pick up things from your life, which you need to, portray or project yourself. So I would say different. Different is the word. Something which is unusual, different, catchy, attention grabbing. So it can be impressive, awards and all. It can be interesting. Uh, Father in a transferable job, stayed in different cities. It can be inspiring, comeback stories, difficult, low score in class 10, topper in class 12, or single child and, studied and difficult childhood. So anything which is either interesting or impressive or inspiring. And we all, like, since I've been doing it for a long time, so I already know what is going through our head, your head. What are you thinking? That there is nothing so special. But we must also understand that what is the end goal? End goal is a middle management corporate position. It's not like they're looking for some heroes of the nation. It's a very normal, regular kind of opportunity. So they also want regular, normal, slightly more ambitious and focused individuals of a certain peer group. That's all. Their expectation is not very high. So we put too many scanners or filters when we are, thinking of answers. हम बहुत ज्यादा स्क्रूटनी करते हैं कि ये बोलें, ये नहीं बोलें, ये सही रहेगा, ये नहीं रहेगा. I don't think people who are listening to our answers, our panelists, they are looking for something outlandish, exceptional, fantastic. They want very normal thing, but very well explained, very organized in its submission. Very well structured answers, very logical, very coherent, very cogent. That's all they are looking for. They aren't looking for anything which is like completely out of ordinary. So therefore, in our preparation, we pick up snippets of our life, small anecdotes, small incidents, experiences, activities, which are slightly unusual. And trust me, in my experience over last so many years, I have not come across a single individual who at the age of 21, 22, 24, 25, when they go for these interviews, are short of such stories. Everyone has abundance of such stories or anecdotes. It's just that we don't reflect intensely enough. We don't introspect. We don't look back at our life. And we are a little too harsh on ourselves. So we think कि ये तो नहीं बोल सकते. We compare everything in terms of, there is a social, we compare it in terms of social context, that compared to others, how would it look? But that is not what we are supposed to talk about. What matters here is, did that particular experience have a substantial impact on you as an individual? Did it help you grow as a person, as a professional? Right? That's all that matters. And then you explain or tell them with enough conviction, with enough emotion for them to be convinced about the importance of this incident. Right? So I would say, how should we start? We try to pick up anything, anything. I lived in a joint family. I have been a diligent student all my life. I've never come second. Anything which is slightly different from what most other people go through. All right. And then all of them must be supported by anecdotes or small stories. So words are not enough. There must be supporting examples or proof or evidence. All right. And thereafter, I believe what we should do is we should try to club them into 4 or 5 groups. So suppose I pick up 25 such things and I make 5 groups of 5 such incidents. So I have 5 into 5 blocks now. And each block should represent a personality trait. So these 4 5 things show that I'm a people person. These 4 5 things show that I'm very goal oriented, project oriented, task oriented. I set targets and I go ahead achieve them in a very meticulous, methodical way. Right? That is what is different about me. That has to be the starting point of our preparation. That is where CL asks you to write that autobiography. Because when you write everything in detail without filters, you are bound to come up with things which will form the core of your answers in the interview. Until unless you write 1500, 2000, 2500 words, I don't think you have dug deep enough in your past life, in your or existence of last 20 years, for you to convince others that they are not making a mistake. Right? So this I would say is the starting point. If I put a number to it, 25 is probably highest that we can come up with. 25 stories divided into 5 groups of 5 stories each representing a certain personality trait or attribute. And in the question, tell me about yourself, that is how we start. We don't over explain, we don't over introduce ourselves because they already have all the basic information in the form. So I won't go ahead and say my name is Abhishek Singhani. I did my graduation in commerce, then I did my MBA from IIM Lucknow. I come from Calcutta. Most of this is already with them. So a customary one-line introduction maybe, but thereafter I come straight to the point. I always say that when you think of this question, introduce yourself. Always look at it like this: that suppose the entire interview was you walking into that room and talking for 120 seconds flat, no questions, no interjections, nothing. 120 seconds of you talking to your panelists. What will you say then? Will you waste time saying banal things which they are already aware of? Or will you grasp, will you seize every second, every moment to put up a case for them, to convince them, right? So that has to be your answer for introduce yourself, right? And that will come only from all those answers that we prepare, all those stories that we ready for ourselves, right? Okay. Now, if I quickly run through the individual questions. All right. So this is my brief for introduce yourself or tell me about yourself, right? Anyone, any question related to this?
Yes, sir. As you said that I don't have to introduce my like educational background as it is already present there with the panelist. What should be the ideal thing that I should start with? Suppose my hobbies or something other than that.
No, I think probably we missed the point here, and maybe I didn't explain it well enough. So it's not about what should we say and what should we not say. That has to be different for every individual. So what should we say? Something which is what we have identified as the trait or the aspect of our life which is our USP. So for some, it can be your academic excellence or professional achievements. For others, it can be their family history. For someone else, it can be their cultural exposure or sports achievements, whatever is different about you, right? It has to be taken up in that way. Suppose there is someone who has been, academically brilliant, meritorious students, always stood first, received a lot of awards and recognition and accolades. That person must underline that fact, even if it is there with the panelist. It should be the top of the mind recall factor. It needs to be reiterated again and again and again, right throughout the interview in a very subtle way. It should not become obvious. But the message is very clear that I would prefer you to ask me more on this. This
Sir,
is what I represent, academic excellence. This is who I am, right? And it should be registered with you
sir,
clearly.
I have a doubt here.
Hmm.
Sir, what registers to us as unique and empowering may not register the same to the panelists, and most of our cases, to a lot of different colleges. So, sir, what factors should we keep in mind while selecting our stories? Because to me, my one story is more important to me than the other, but to the panelists, it may not be the case.
So there are two things about it. One is that's where the preparation comes in. One, multiple rewrites. You read it out to yourself. That's where the mentorship program comes in. So you read it to me, not necessarily in a formal interview, but just generally one single answer. 2 minutes of conversation. I'll give you my feedback. So this is how our answers evolve. So that is one. It's a hit and trial thing, and you go through mock interviews and you keep getting that feedback that this story does not have the bite, this one was a good point, right, and so on. And secondly, it's very difficult to assess at that moment in an interview. I won't say difficult, I would say impossible. And that, I would say, is a fatal mistake. When you start thinking about what your panelist is thinking, or how are they taking your answers, or what is their reaction to what you are saying, that is lethal, I'll say. That is the worst mistake we can make. It's beyond us, in that moment, in that kind of scenario, to have any idea of how others are reacting to our answers. So sometimes, the body language, not sometimes, always, the body language, the facial expression is very misleading. I can't tell you how many times it has so happened where at the end of the interview, when I've asked the interviewee that how did you think your interview went? And his assessment and my analysis are completely different. So I would say during an interview, it's practically impossible for us to know that whether the story is hitting home or not. So everything that has to be done in the preparatory stage. And with practice, with experience, the answers reach a certain level where we are able to adapt it to any kind of interview. Whether the interview is going in a certain way, whether the language is or tone is very harsh, or whether it's very gentle, it's dull, it's boring, any kind of interview, धीरे धीरे ऐसा हो जाता है कि हम अपने आंसर्स किसी भी तरह के इंटरव्यू में बहुत आसानी से फिट कर लेते हैं. हम इतना कमांड हो जाता है अपनी स्टोरीज पे. And that's what the practice is all about. And it doesn't take much time also. It all looks a lot of work, but trust me, once you start now, it takes maximum 1 week. Within a week, we are able to rattle off those stories ekdam easily, smoothly. And obviously, all the stories are not true in entirety. कुछ exaggeration भी होता है. कुछ हम मिर्च मसाला ऐड करते हैं, कुछ उसको ड्रामा ऐड करते हैं. But we become so convinced of it because most of it is about us, what we have actually truly experienced. तो बहुत आराम से we are able to say that in an interview. And as I said, without sounding condescending or snobbish, we are all in a way intelligent enough. We have the sharpness, the mental alertness to do this. All right. So the initial hard work is the key. So I would say, but I think the good point that you brought up is कि हर story equally impactful नहीं है. So in our preparation only, the priority order of the stories is also something we become conscious of. So वो भी हमें preparation में feedback से ही पता चलता है कि ये story ज़्यादा interesting लग रहा है. And everything is decided by my audience, which in mock interviews is where the audience will give us feedback.
Sir, in
So
order to write these 25 stories, there still should be some factors which I should keep in mind. For
right.
example, like I can present you two stories of mine. Like I
No,
learned.
that we will do on a one-on-one session.
Okay, sir.
So before that, what I'll say is that the factor that you were talking about, which is a very fair point, is why I did not specify anything, very narrow. Why I kept it generic is because it varies a lot from person to person. So the underlying parameter that I've identified is that the story should sound a little different. Okay, I'll just give you some very wild examples, right? So as I said, I mentioned this also, say a joint family. Say you have stayed in a family where 20-25 people have shared a 500 square feet house. All your childhood, your upbringing has been like this. This is what you have seen families live like. Very few people have had a childhood like this and gone ahead and did well in their academic career and reached an IIM. So that alone is very interesting. It is very attention grabbing kind of thing. It doesn't even sound like, why should we even talk about it? But this can be made up into a reflection of who we are, where we are coming from, what kind of individual we are, and this can lead to a further subsequent conversation. So every individual will have a different collection of points, but the keyword should be different. It should be unusual, something interesting. And I mentioned three things: interesting, impressive, or inspiring. Okay. And individual stories, I think it's better if we take up in a one-on-one session.
Okay, sir. Noted.
All
Noted,
right.
sir.
Okay. All right. So other personal questions. So ek to ye tell me about yourself. Okay. Introduce yourself. And again, I say, for me, if you prepare this answer well enough, it covers the entire gamut of personal questions. I don't think anything is left after this. Now, let's quickly run through other questions. So the next most common question asked is why MBA? Why MBA now? Right? And all those questions. So see, I always say, everyone does MBA or goes for an MBA education from a top college for same reason. There is no secondary reason. And that reason is largely a managerial role. So we may say to ourselves it's because of money. It's not because of money. There are various other career options which can fetch us same kind of financial rewards. Maybe you don't even realize, you don't even acknowledge. It's largely because of a managerial business-like roles. Somewhere deep down, subconsciously, you have accepted that you are not cut out for a technical role. You want to be in administration. You want to manage multiple things at a time. You like working with people, making people work for you. You like making plans. You like having goals. You like having that risk reward ratio in your life. You are not a stickler for stability. You are that person. That is the driving force. That is why you see only 2-3 lakh people actually take up MBA. If it is so, financially attractive, why not 50 lakh people? Why not the entire country? So the only explanation has to be this, that people do realize that they are not cut out for this. It's business. And very few people have any kind of taste for entrepreneurship. And it's semi-entrepreneurship only. When after an MBA you join a company, it's hardly a job. There's a lot of freedom. There's a lot of space. There's a lot of accountability, authority, responsibility. At that level, it's not really a job. They give you projects, right? You have to ultimately deliver. That's how it works at that level. So somewhere we must understand that it's because of our managerial inclinations, right? And money comes easily. But the key thing is that why MBA? I mean, why can't I become a very successful manager just growing through the ranks? Join a company, promotion hota rahega. I will keep learning, keep performing, keep improving. जैसे सब कोई करते हैं. In 10-15 years time, probably I'll reach a certain level. So what MBA does is it accelerates the whole process, right? It uh, it organizes the entire learning in a very compact course. What I'll probably end up learning by myself in a very chaotic way in 10-15 years, I get everything neatly arranged in a 2-year institutional course. So that's what an MBA is, right? So as I say, don't think money. Everyone knows that the salaries are sky high, especially in a country like India. But why money? Why are companies paying so much money to a young, inexperienced person? All he has done is attended classes for 2 years. It's not like he has a startup. It's not like he has 10 years of work experience. He has done something phenomenal. Nothing. Just attended classes, case studies, reports, projects. And suddenly this person from 8 lakh is worth 35 lakhs. So everyone somewhere appreciates the kind of training that takes place in an MBA college. And what is that training? They make a manager out of you. They make a business person out of you. And how do they do that? They make you live that life every single day. This is not a training that can be done, by talking about it or by teaching you concepts. It has to be done by simulation. They replicate corporate life with all its challenges, constraints, competitiveness. Every day, you practically live the same life which a corporate manager is living. And day in, day out, doing that, your basic DNA changes, your professional DNA changes, and you become a person who will always get the job done. That is what the entire MBA education is about, right? Be it the pedagogy, be it relative grading, be it application based learning, whatever you learn, it is a lot of real life application. Very little is theoretical. Everything you work in groups, hardly anything is done individually. The entire grading system, it is divided into very small components: 5 marks, 2 marks, 1 mark. So continuous evaluation, a lot of industry interaction. Honestly, I mean, in most of the colleges, undergraduate colleges, industry interaction is very loosely used. But in MBA colleges, you truly get an idea of what industry interaction actually is, other than summer internships also. And so all of these things, right? So their entire education is designed to make you a corporate manager, to the finest detail, right? And the reason why we go for it is because somewhere, and this is where you need to look back and realize, understand what prompted you to move towards this. All right. And I believe that, whenever we take up something with a lot of passion, gusto, the initial starting point is always some kind of attraction. So we must have come across people who have done MBA. We must have heard stories about people who have done MBA. There has to be some element of romance in how it all started. So all of this put together should be my answer. So how it all started, one. So I always say it has to be three-stage answer. One, how it all started, the attraction. Second, the research that we sat down. We didn't do that exactly like this, but ये ऐसे ही बोलना है कि मतलब या ऐसे ही समझाना है कि evaluated options कि क्या सही रहेगा, self introspection, strengths and weaknesses, and we realized that yes, this is my calling in life. ठीक है, कुछ हमने इंटर्नशिप्स किया, वहां से एक्सपोजर मिला. जिनका वर्क एक्सपीरियंस है वो तो वहां से डायरेक्टली ड्रॉ कर सकते हैं. ठीक है. एंड थर्ड पार्ट इज डिसीजन मेकिंग कि हाँ अभी राइट टाइम है. Maybe later with financial responsibilities, it will become very difficult. CAT, any which way, is such a difficult exam. It's very difficult to manage CAT with job in hand. And maybe if I'm a fresher, then this is almost like a continuation of college education. I'm still in that student mode. Easy for me to be, an intent and keen learner in the college. ठीक है. फैमिली का भी कोई ज्यादा ऑब्लिगेशन नहीं था. तो थर्ड आपका डिसीजन मेकिंग पार्ट. तो ये पूरा आंसर होना चाहिए एमबीए का कि मेरा मैनेजरियल इंक्लिनेशन है, गोल है, यही करना है. ठीक है. हाउ इट ऑल स्टार्टेड, देन वी इवैल्यूएटेड ऑप्शंस, एंड फाइनली हाउ डिड वी टेक दिस डिसीजन टू डू इट नाउ. तो इसको एकदम ब्रीफ, एकदम टाइट आंसर बनाना है, शॉर्ट में लिखना है. राइट. नाउ द थिंग इज कि so two things that are avoidable is, one, as I said, that everyone should have the same end goal, same reason for doing it. That is number one. There can't be any other reason because they don't teach anything else, right? And it's not some weekend course. It's not some, एकदम जरा सा बस course कर लिया. It is a lot of investment and money and time. So there is no way you can have any other goal for doing MBA except the one which the program is designed for. Second, also, we must be a little balanced or mature in our expressions. So we can't say that from a very long time or since I was in high school. It doesn't sound plausible. It all sounds very unrealistic and too fanciful. तो थोड़ा सा ना strategic approach display करना है कि rather than saying something which is very unrealistic. Okay. Yes, guys, why MBA? Anyone? Any questions?
So, as a person with work experience, you said that it would be difficult to manage, and freshers would say that they would be still in their like student mode. What do a person with 10, 12 months experience should say, apart from like they do get influenced and like starstruck by their seniors who are also from IIMs? But should I be using it as some of my seniors are from IIMs only?
Right. So see, now what we are discussing now is a different type of question, that why MBA now? Why quit your job now? Why not continue for 2, 3 more years? That kind of question. Why MBA? To jo whatever we have discussed, it has to be similar. But the question is, after 10 months of work experience, why do you want to quit your job suddenly and do an MBA at this moment? When you've just joined the company, just started learning the corporate ways, right? So let's first have a perspective about this MBA education and who is an ideal candidate. So you all must be aware that ISB Hyderabad wants 2 years of work experience. In most of the colleges abroad, across the world, the top colleges, uh, the minimum requirement is 4 or 5 years of work experience, right? I'm sure most of you are aware of this. Why is it so? Because this education will be best taken by people who have actually been working for 40, 50 months. They'll be able to appreciate the education in its truest sense. There is no denial of that fact, right? Then why is it okay for freshers to go ahead and do an MBA and be in the same batch as people with 5 years of work experience, or people with 8 months of work experience and 4 years of work experience? How can they cohabit in the same batch? So the reasons are all practical ones. Our education system, our job market is not so evolved. It is not so developed, right? So we will have to work within our national constraints. Nothing can be done about it. So this was perspective. This is not what we say in the answer. So once we understand this, then what you must also therefore understand is कि if someone says that work for 4 years and then come to do an MBA, principally that person is right. So we should avoid getting into an argument of principles, that this is the right thing, that is the right thing. Almost in all cases, what that person is saying is correct. So there is no fight on the basis of principles. So it has to be a practical response. That, what I would do in this case is that first I would almost, give a gentle disclaimer, almost agreeing with him. That to a large extent I agree with you, but at the same time I believe that CAT is an exam which is one of the toughest in the world, and probably it's luck is a very important factor, from my seniors and all. So this was lucky to get I had a discussion with mentors and my family members, and me to take up if I get an opportunity. So it has those lines, that it was a practical decision, right, rather than some well thought out strategic decision. Because on that ground, I think there is nothing much to argue for. Ideally, तो everyone should have 4 or 5 years of work experience before they go for an MBA. तो उसमें तो कुछ बोलने के लिए नहीं है. तुम्हारा आर्गुमेंट प्रैक्टिकली होना चाहिए. ठीक है? I hope that.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Okay. Anything else? Why MBA से related किसी का?
So, I have one question.
No? Okay. Yeah. Yeah. If possible, I would request that whoever is asking a question should switch on their camera.
Okay, sir. So actually,
It's
the
not
net.
too much of a bother.
So actually, the area in which I'm sitting, the net is not so
Right,
good.
not
So,
an issue. Yeah, go ahead with your question.
so
No
so
problem. Go ahead with your question.
my question was, so my CAT score wasn't that good, and so I'm not expecting any calls from any top tier MBA colleges. But I also gave my SNAP exam and my NMAT exam, and I was able to get a decent score of around 213 in NMAT, and of course, Snap haven't released the results. So, sir, what would you suggest me to do, sir? Is that I'm confused. That should I go for CAT next year or go for work experience? I'm a fresher right now. I'm doing BBA in third year. So, should I go for work
So,
experience or
right.
should I
So
just?
I would say that at this point of time, this is not a decision for us to be taken, to be made. What we should do is that since we have already appeared for Snap, we have already appeared, we're planning to appear for ZAD, we should complete the whole process. We should wait for interview calls, do our best in the interview. Only when we get final admission calls in say April or May, close to June, then we should sit down with our family members and mentors, and then we should decide what is to be done. because there is no right answer to this. As I said, it's a practical thing. See, every year I delay my MBA, I'm losing that higher salary opportunity. वो जो 25-30 lakh salary मिलता था, 1 year delay हो गया. Also, I'm denying myself a chance to go to an IM if I'm going to a symbiosis, which is as good a college as an IM, but फिर भी थोड़ा brand value का difference है. So ये बहुत ही personal decision है, and there is no right answer to this. But I say you take the decision when there is actually a decision to be made. There is no dilemma right now. The only thing we need to do is complete the whole process, which is do our best in the interview, try to convert those calls, which will, even if we don't take up college, will give us a lot of immense confidence for next year. Tabhi, that should be the only focus area and nothing else. Okay.
Okay, thank you, sir.
All right. So let's go through the other personal questions. So why MBA ho gaya? Long-term and short-term goals. So this, in a way, we have already discussed that MBA has a solitary goal, single purpose of making you start your corporate career in a middle management position, help you grow through the ranks, and probably reach the top management position at a relatively younger age. So that is what an MBA helps you achieve. So it accelerates the whole journey, right? And obviously gives you much more advantage in terms of flexibility of career choices, in terms of growth opportunities. कि नॉन एमबीए से कंपैरिजन में एमबीए को ज्यादा मिलता है. सो यही हमारा गोल होना चाहिए. सो देयर इज नो पॉइंट एडिंग एनीथिंग एल्स. यही हमारा लॉन्ग टर्म और शॉर्ट टर्म गोल होना चाहिए. शॉर्ट टर्म मींस 5-7 years. तो शॉर्ट टर्म में तो मैं 2-3 फैक्टर्स बोलूंगा, एंड आई एम नॉट गोइंग टू डिक्टेट लाइंस बिकॉज अगेन द आंसर्स मस्ट बी इंडिविजुअल. पता है वर्स्ट काइंड ऑफ आंसर क्या है? Where I listen to an answer and I think the previous candidate could have said exactly the same thing, would have made no difference. The answer must have personal elements. It should look like your answer, your story. It should not be a good answer. So I will give you salient points. तो short term में आपका एक तो learning बहुत होना चाहिए. Anyone who has less than 1 or 2 years of experience and freshers, उनके लिए first 4-5 years I would say, 3-4 years, yeah, 3-4 years I would say, so it's just eye-opening experience. Corporate world होता क्या है, मतलब how do things work there. तो 3-4 years तो आपका बहुत लर्निंग है. सेक्टर रिलेटेड लर्निंग, आपका फंक्शन रिलेटेड लर्निंग, वट एवर यू लर्न इन अ बी स्कूल, उसका एप्लीकेशन, मैनेजिंग टीम्स, अचीविंग टारगेट्स, वर्किंग इन डिफरेंट टेरिटरीज, इन डिफरेंट कल्चर्स. सो ऑल ऑफ दीज, सो लॉट ऑफ लर्निंग. तो एक लर्निंग हो गया. सेकेंड, और in career wise and personal space, you want to have some degree of clarity as to the goal. Where are you head life? You know what next is to be done. तो वो अगर आपका थोड़ा settle हो जाए, that will be a big achievement. So that should be a very important short term goal, that career wise have more clarity of vision. और third मैं बोलूंगा कि as a professional, right, you as a professional you get to experience what an MBA education, has provided you with in terms of resources and empowerment and arsenal, all the things that has been given to you. So in terms of peer respect, in terms of maintaining your value system, that against a lot of odds, the way you have behaved, the way you have conducted yourself, the values you have held dear, not given into temptations. So that kind of thing, because that you have been provided with enough skills, enough capabilities for you to compete and survive and flourish. तो ये भी एक part होना चाहिए where you are true to yourself as a professional. You are able to identify your style of work. Things. You have the necessary presence, necessary capabilities, competencies to follow your path. तो largely मैं बोलूँगा ये 3 चीजें important है: learning, various aspects of learning, some degree of clarity of future, and third, a professional identity. Right? So this should be my short-term goal. Long-term goal is very, I think for everyone, it should be more or less similar. Top management, CEO level, a strategic decision-making body, heading some business unit. But we can also talk about journey. So these nation points. So we can also talk in terms of what we like our 15-20 years of corporate experience to pan out. Like, so maybe be associated with startups, take up challenging assignments, be involved in policy making of some kind. How would you like your corporate peers to look at you as? हाउ वुड यू लाइक टू बी रिमेम्बर्ड एज, तो थोड़ा सा जर्नी और डेस्टिनेशन पे जेनरिक बातें कर सकते हैं. देखो, वाई एमबीए एंड गोल्स बहुत अच्छे आंसर्स नहीं हो सकते. इट्स डिफिकल्ट टू इम्प्रेस समवन विद दीज आंसर्स. तो इस तरह के क्वेश्चंस में हमारा गोल होता है कि एक जेनरिक सा आंसर दे दें, बहुत डिफरेंट ना हो और बहुत ज्यादा क्रॉस क्वेश्चनिंग ना हो. सो आवर गोल फॉर दीज आंसर्स इज दिस ओनली. सो यहाँ पे सेफ सेफ वाले आंसर्स देने हैं. ठीक है. यस. एनी क्वेश्चंस ऑन गोल्स, लॉन्ग टर्म शॉर्ट टर्म गोल्स, पीपल? एनीवन? नो? ओके. ऑलराइट. सो अब हम लोग थोड़े से वो सेलिंग वाले आंसर्स पे आते हैं. वेयर वी विल सेल आवरसेल्फ, वेयर वी मेक अ पिच फॉर आवरसेल्फ. तो एक है स्ट्रेंथ्स एंड वीकनेसेस. तो स्ट्रेंथ्स तो ऑल द स्टोरीज दैट वी हैव मेड. एंड स्ट्रेंथ्स में आई ऑलवेज से दैट बहुत ही जो ऑब्वियस से स्ट्रेंथ्स होते हैं, हार्ड वर्किंग, पंक्चुअल, ये सब अवॉइड करना चाहिए. एवरीवन इज हार्ड वर्किंग, एवरीवन इज ऑनेस्ट, एवरीवन इज पंक्चुअल. So something which is a little different, right? And always give stories for strengths. Always, and remember, stories must be brief. Nothing in it is more disturbing or galling than long, boring stories. So they have to be very brief to the point. So strengths में ये हो गया. Weaknesses में always give rectification and be honest enough to share whatever you think is an area of improvement. ऐसा नहीं है कि weakness में आपको कोई strength को weakness बना के बोलना है. ये सब tactics बहुत पुराने हो गए हैं और मैं तो बोलूंगा avoidable है. So I'm too patient, I am too, ये सब बकवास नहीं करनी है. So I think better है कि आप honestly बोलो whatever you think needs improvement and what you have done about it. Okay. And it should be some substantial weakness. It cannot be I sleep a lot या इस तरह का. It should affect your professional, space. Achievement तो story है. And I always say ideal stories interviews में भी और generally भी आपका होता है challenge, achievement, learning. I call it a CAL approach. CAL. Challenge, achievement, learning. This should be the standard structure of any story, a comeback story. Okay. और failures भी can be anything that you regret, where you feel you could have done better in life, तो वो आपका failure हो गया. ठीक है. Hobbies and interests. तो अब इसमें क्या है ना, we can say nothing or we can say very common things. But the thing is, if I say something interesting, if I say I do research on Second World War, if I say I've read every novel written by a Nobel Prize winner in last 50 years, if I say something interesting like this, right, it leads to a conversation. Next 4-5 minutes are mine. They will keep talking about it. They'll encourage me to talk because that's normal human reaction. I mean, we give too much premium to the fact it's an interview. It's a conversation. People will act like they normally do, like everyone does. If you say something interesting, they are bound to be curious, inquisitive. And these are professors. They have a lot of knowledge on different subjects. They like to talk about very, these kind of trivia here and there. If you bring up something like this, they're likely to be piqued. They're likely to be, very curious and ask questions. And if they are asking questions, trust me, it's a very good sign. It means that it's going in the right direction. They are interested in us as individuals. इसलिए hobbies कुछ अच्छा सा interesting सा, if you design, if you work on it, 2-3 महीने हैं, कुछ अच्छा सा 2-3 interesting topic ले लोगे different, तो बहुत अच्छा रहेगा. And even if you say something normal like sports or reading or anything, please make it very narrow. The genre should be very clearly identified, the domain. क्योंकि अभी reading बोलते हो, he can ask anything from the billion possible questions. It has to be something very, very, very narrow. कि यही पूछो. This is all that I know. This is what I'm good at. So please stick to this. That message should be very, clearly conveyed. तो वो भी एकदम underline कर दो कि this is my area of interest, hobbies and interest में. ठीक है. Family, similar to hobbies and interest, I
Sir,
say. I can
one
just simply say
question.
the details. But
Sir,
yeah,
one
yeah,
question about the hobbies one.
yeah.
Sir, is it necessary to have a detailed knowledge of the hobbies which I'm interested in? Because sometimes the hobbies are just for passing your time and to relax your brain and not to gather the information.
See, I completely agree with you. And even they understand. But just understand this, that there is very limited time and space for them to evaluate a lot of very good candidates and to give them marks. तो उनका ना बहुत problem है इस situation में. They're not taking 1 hour, 2 hour का interview and they don't have a very detailed evaluation process. 10-15 मिनट में बस जल्दी से कुछ देखना है. So the onus is completely on us कि 10 सेकंड में कोई impact कर दे. 15 सेकंड में let's leave a mark. So it's absolutely okay मतलब एकदम कोई नेगेटिव मार्किंग नहीं है इफ आई डोंट ऐड एनीथिंग टू माय हॉबी और इफ आई डोंट नो एनीथिंग इन डिटेल. बट जस्ट इमेजिन व्हाट इफ आई डू. What if I know the dimensions of a badminton court? What if I know the top 10 ranks of badminton players? Will that not somewhere subconsciously impress the listener?
Sir,
So
so is
again,
it
it comes down to us. It's absolutely okay to say that I just play, I'm not that interested, I don't follow. But I had 2 months on my hand. I could have made it something interesting. And I'll tell you why that is not odd. Because actually people do that. I'll give you my example, like I follow football. And say if I follow a team called Barcelona, I can tell you the exact nature of injuries of every single player on the squad. Because sometimes it so happens that when you're pursuing a hobby, you are very much immersed into it, and I personally think it does add a little extra to your life. तो लोग ऐसा करते भी हैं, and प्रोफेसर्स तो करते हैं, मतलब जैसे academicians होते हैं ना, उनके नेचर में भी होता है. So if I actually do this and I sit for an interview and talk in that way about an area of my interest, it's more likely that it will leave a positive effect on them. तो मैं तो सजेस्ट करूंगा कि बेटर है हम थोड़ा रिसर्च करें, बट यस इट इज नॉट नेसेसरी दैट वी हैव एन encyclopedic knowledge of everything. There may be things that they may ask and we may not know, which is okay. So I would say कि ये जो आंसर है ना, ये या तो न्यूट्रल है या पॉजिटिव है. इट कैन नेवर बी नेगेटिव. इट इज अपॉन अस कि इसको न्यूट्रल रखना है कि इसको एक पॉजिटिव सेलिंग पॉइंट बनाए.
Okay, sir. Sir, there was one more question.
Okay.
Sir,
Yeah.
there was one
Hmm.
more question. Sir, many people have talk
Hmm.
about like moving taking the interview in the direction which we want. Will you be discussing about that today?
Yeah, so this is what we are doing.
Okay.
So when we say कि आप हॉबीज को ओवर एक्सप्लेन करो या फिर अपने स्टोरीज सुनाओ, तो ये क्या है? ये वही है ना कि हम इंटरव्यू को वी आर टेकिंग इट इन अ सर्टेन डायरेक्शन.
Okay. Okay.
We are almost giving a subtle message to them that these are my areas. Please ask me on them. Obviously, the locus of power is on the other side of the table. You can go ahead and ask anything. मतलब most of the time he'll pick up cues and ask the exact opposite question. उसे समझ में आ जाएगा आप चाहते हो इस पे पूछना, वो नहीं पूछेगा. That can always happen, but we can only try. So our long answers, are push in a way कि हम push कर रहे हैं अपने answers को. का पर्पस एक ही है, to in a way influence him to ask questions on these topics. So when we say drive the interview, ये वह है, यही है drive करना. Okay. अभी फैमिली वाला क्वेश्चन है. सो फैमिली ऑल्सो आई वुड से सिमिलर टू हॉबीज एंड इंटरेस्ट वाला क्वेश्चन कि इफ आई डोंट से मच अबाउट इट, इट्स ओके, नो बिग डील. आई मीन आई कैन जस्ट से द डिटेल्स एंड ऑल. But if I add stories, incidents, whatever I've learned from my family, something interesting about it, it usually leads to a conversation. And that is always a good thing for me. Next 2-3 minutes are completely in my area, my side. Okay. वोट तो पर्सनल क्वेश्चंस लार्जली मेरे ख्याल से यही हैं. ये पर्सनल क्वेश्चंस आपके कवर हो गए मोस्टली. नाउ इफ आई कम टू एकेडमिक्स, एनीवन हु हैज लेस देन 1 year, प्लीज डू वर्क ऑन एकेडमिक्स. इट डज नॉट टेक टाइम. आपको सिनॉप्सिस ही पढ़ना है अपने ग्रेजुएशन सब्जेक्ट्स का. एंड टू 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 काइंड ऑफ सब्जेक्ट्स आर. एक तो जो आपका कोर सब्जेक्ट था, सो इफ यू आर अ बीकॉम ऑनर्स यू हैव टू रूम्स. एंड दूसरा आपका एक फेवरेट सब्जेक्ट, सो पिक अप वन सब्जेक्ट और उसको थोड़ा ज्यादा अच्छे से पढ़ लो. एंड इट्स एब्सोल्युटली ओके इफ यू आर अनेबल टू आंसर क्वेश्चंस. उसमें कोई प्रॉब्लम नहीं है. थ्योरी के क्वेश्चंस हैं, सो इफ यू नो समथिंग अबाउट इट, यू आर एबल टू वेगली रिकॉल, you can give a disclaimer that I don't recall it completely, but if you allow me, I'll like to take a shot. And whatever little tell them. It's absolutely okay to do that. और नहीं पता है तो tell them clearly. Don't bluff your way. But अगर application based questions पूछते हैं कि एनजीओ का अकाउंटिंग सिस्टम अलग कैसे होगा, या ये ब्रिज बनाने का सिस्टम पहले से डिफरेंट कैसे हो गया है, एनी एप्लीकेशन बेस्ड क्वेश्चंस, देयर यू कांट पुट योर हैंड्स अप एंड से आई डोंट नो. देयर यू विल हैव ट्राई. दिस इज मोर लॉजिक देन नॉलेज, एंड दिस इज हु वी आर. वी आर लॉजिकल एंड रैशनल बीइंग्स. You'll have to go and take head on. तो एकेडमिक्स में क्या क्या मैंने की पॉइंट्स बोले. एक तो ग्रेजुएशन के सब्जेक्ट्स का सिनॉप्सिस पढ़ लो, सारी का ही पढ़ लो, एंड ट्रस्ट मी इट डजंट टेक टाइम. सेकंड, फेवरेट सब्जेक्ट और कोर सब्जेक्ट इंपॉर्टेंट है. थर्ड, इट्स नॉट नेसेसरी दैट आई आंसर ऑल द थ्योरेटिकल क्वेश्चंस, एंड वी कैन एक्चुअली से हाफ आंसर्स आल्सो इफ वी नो व्हाटएवर लिटिल वी कैन गिव इट अ ट्राई. एंड एप्लीकेशन बेस्ड क्वेश्चंस तो आंसर करने ही करने हैं. जहां तक वर्क एक्सपीरियंस का सवाल है, so two types of questions. Again, personal questions, your achievements, learnings, your relationship with your boss, peers, clients. Why do you want to quit your job? Uh, uh, or I know similar questions. And second is आपका industry और sector और company based learning questions. Company based में पूछ सकते हैं आपको vision और mission क्या है company का, competitors क्या है, business plan क्या है. इंडस्ट्री बेस्ड क्वेश्चंस हो सकता है, गवर्नमेंट पॉलिसीज का इम्पैक्ट क्या है, इंटरेस्ट रेट का इम्पैक्ट क्या है, एंड ऑल दोस थिंग्स. सेक्टर बेस्ड क्वेश्चंस हो सकता है. तो ये आपका वर्क एक्सपीरियंस रिलेटेड क्वेश्चंस है. यस, सो एनीवन, एनी क्वेश्चन इन टर्म्स ऑफ एकेडमिक्स एंड वर्क एक्सपीरियंस, गाइस?
Yes, sir, I had one question.
Yeah.
Last year I went to an interview and they asked me like, how is my IT background beneficial in MBA and after MBA? And I was kind of stuck with half answers. So how do we deal with these kind of questions?
Right. So this is more of a personal question. So if you look at the course curriculum of an MBA, of any college, in fact, you'll realize something, that no graduation degree has any alignment or sync with that education. तो आप बीकॉम ले लो, बीटेक ले लो, कोई भी ले लो, there is no commonality, there is no logical explanation why a BCom or any other graduate should go ahead and do MBA. So it's independent of your graduate education. The same question can be asked to anyone कि आप आईटी के बाद एमबीए क्यों कर रहे हो, आप कॉमर्स के बाद एमबीए क्यों कर रहे हो, आप साइंस के बाद एमबीए क्यों कर रहे हो, आर्ट्स के बाद एमबीए क्यों कर रहे हो, कुछ है ही नहीं लॉजिक. So again I say that all of this has to be answered in a more practical way. So when I was 18, my career choices were different and the decisions were taken in a different way. A lot of stakeholders used to, guide me, advise me. And there it was more about following my interest area and getting into a good college. Now at the age of 21, my decisions are taken on a different benchmark. So now it's more about career choices where I see myself 10, 15 years down the line. So it's a completely different way of deciding my career choices now. So it has to be more on those lines. Okay.
Okay, sir.
Also इससे related one more thing I would like to add is that कि अगर आपका score low है या फिर in one exam if you have not done that well, one thing you should never do is run down your college, speak ill of your teachers. That is something you should completely avoid. So if I have and I honestly believe there's no harm in occasionally telling them the truth also. अगर मेरा class 12 अच्छा नहीं है, there's no harm in saying कि probably I did not focus as much as I should have. I think I was interested in learning, but somewhere the exam-oriented approach, I did not realize the importance of it. I truly regret that. But I think I have later on in my college I did well. So in a way, I will give myself a little bit of credit for making a comeback, which many people struggle to. So I can say something like that. So it's not necessary that every time I give them an excuse, a reason. Sometimes I can just talk normally like a mature person who is comfortable with all that has happened in their life, good or bad. No, comfortable in their skin. No pretenses needed. They just explain it well enough. Okay. I think there's a very good expression of what my interview strategy is. It is truth well told. Right? All right. So that was academics and work experience. Any other question related to academics or work experience, anyone?
Sir, I have a 2-year gap in my graduation and my currently. So it isn't a technical gap because I have been working with my father ever since and full time, that to full time, but I did not take any kind of salary or remuneration from the business. How do I explain it or how do I form my story to justify
First
those
of all, though,
figures?
if you were actually working in your family business, you should have shown it as a work experience in your form. It's not to be shown as a gap.
Sir, but the form asked for like receipts of the payments or the salaries received, and I didn't take out any salary.
See, normally when there is no official salary, it is usually, but you've actually worked at a place, then we normally, what we do is that we kind of show it as cash salary, and it can't be a very high amount, so it is usually shown as 10,000 rupees per month cash salary. So there is no bank record of it, obviously, and then obviously memos or pay slips are given.
Sir,
right?
is there
So,
anything I can do about it now, right now to get the
right. So what I would suggest now is that we don't need to get into that at all. Since you have genuinely worked in your family business, this is all that we will say, that this is what we have been doing. And trust me, if you have actually worked and we have enough material to work on and prepare good answers and have a good story here, this can be the highlight of your interview.
Sir, I have
And
genuinely worked with my father for like past 2 years full time, and before that, even before that, part time. Before my graduation, I worked part time, and I've been working with him full time ever since.
right, and you, I see. I'll just explain it. You tell me, does it sound more acceptable or not? I want people who have, managerial aptitude, who are likely to become very good business persons. And if I come across one candidate who has been working in a cubicle in a corporate, even if it's a very big company, but it's a company and he had a very small spare of responsibility. On the other hand, I have another candidate who is running a business, giving livelihoods, working at grassroots level, taking very risk-oriented decisions every day, making plans of expansion, every day managing different domains of business, finance, marketing, operations, HR, IT, everything. Which candidate do you think is more appealing to me? Right? So
Sir,
any
there is one more
exposure to
question
real
also
business,
regarding this. Sir, in my second year, I started a business also, and
right?
like that was a short-run business. I did it only for 4 to 5 months, and it eventually
No,
failed.
that's okay. But at least you ventured, no? So any entrepreneurial exposure or initiative is always, looked at with a very favorable eye. So ये सब तो बहुत अच्छे स्टोरीज बनेंगे, ठीक है? ये हमारे आंसर्स के बहुत अच्छे पॉइंट्स होंगे, तो इसमें डिफेंसिव नहीं होना है, ये तो
Okay, sir.
हमारा पिच होगा, वहां पे मेन पिच होगा.
Okay, sir. Thank you so much.
Yes. Anything else, anyone, in terms of academics and work experience? Any question?
Good evening, sir.
Yeah.
Sir, actually, I have a question regarding my academics. My
Yeah.
performance in my graduation was not very good. So, how do I tackle this situation? Because I know it will come up in the interview that I didn't perform
So
well.
I had a similar problem. My scores in graduation were not very high. For me, the reason was similar to what the other person was talking about. I've been involved in business from a very young age. So मेरा तो graduation में एकदम पूरा all 3 years I was doing business only. So obviously the scores were not high. So I'll tell you what I did. So I played it on multiple fronts. So one explanation was that with my interest in sports and cultural activities and all, that was one. Second, I said my marks may be low, but my knowledge is very robust, and I really prepared very well in terms of subject knowledge. So because it is a very provocative and a little in your face kind of statement when you go ahead with that. So you have to be very. It has to be backed by a lot of hard work and research and all that. So I studied very hard for my interview at least. I wish I had done the same for my graduation, but so I did that, and that was another thing I used to say. And the third was marking scheme. So because they really don't know the intricacies of marking scheme or pattern of every university or college. So thoda sa we can play there, right? That the highest score was this much only, or usual score or average score, mean score, median score is this much. So it should not look as it is not as bad as it looks. So for example, in Calcutta University, at one point of time, the highest score used to be 70 to 73%. And we're talking about city topper. So then 55% is not that bad, right? And along with that, if you also add that, that knowledge of subjects is pretty robust, is pretty good, although the marks may not reflect that, right? And then you are kind of provoking them into asking you questions. So then that discussion is over and a new discussion opens up. So it's an academic discussion, and most of the academic questions that are likely to ask can be anticipated. In three or four mock interviews, you get to experience all possible academic questions that they will ask. Very rarely will they surprise you. Mock interviews में cover हो जाता है एकदम. So I think that is one way to look at it.
So in this situation, so actually the same issue is with my university as well. The university gold medalist got 71%.
Right.
So should I just say it directly or should I leave around
Yes,
it?
we say it directly, but there's a way to it. There's a style in which you convey this. So it should not come across as an excuse. It should come across as an explanation, right? So again, the choice of words is important. So if I start with this kind of a statement, yes, sir, I feel that I should have done much better than this, Although, not as an excuse, but I would like to highlight the fact that the highest score was 71%, and I was probably in the top 30% of my batch. But I would still concede the fact that I deserved to have a better performance. I think it was largely because in college we had multiple activities and I was involved in this. I was captain of this, and I also feel that there were a couple of subjects I was deeply interested in. I topped in this subject. I did very well. I think I have a very good knowledge of these subjects, but maybe in terms of exam, I should have put in more effort.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. All right. Fourth type of questions है आपका miscellaneous and others. So one is उसमें एकदम अलग-अलग type के question. They can ask you about your community, your city, your state. So we must keep reading about these things: our community, state, city, neighborhood, all these things. And also puzzles. They may ask random puzzles. They may ask you to crack a joke, sing a song. These kind of things. Acha, we did not cover the GK questions. No, Acha, we'll come to that also. So GK also, mostly when they ask you about GK or current affairs, it's a discussion-based approach. It's like a GD. It's like a mini GD. So they would prefer you to talk about in a very analytical way on any topic for 30-40 seconds. That is the general approach of GK questions in an interview. Very rarely they do that trivia thing, one-on-one. That is very rare. So mostly is GD kind of approach. And in case they do ask you some actual GK type factual question, again, don't even think of bluffing. If you don't know, just very clearly, categorically tell them that I am not aware of this. I'm sorry. Right? That is okay. It's absolutely okay. And sometimes they do that only to pile pressure on you. Because as I said, they are used to the idea of dealing with 25, 30-year-olds. So suddenly when they see a 21-year-old, for them, it looks like a prey. तो वो hunting mode में आ जाते हैं. मजे लेते हैं. तो कई बार वो जानबूझ के ऐसा बैक टू बैक जीके क्वेश्चन पूछेंगे जस्ट टू सी हाउ यू हैंडल द स्ट्रेस सो डोंट टेक इट पर्सनली इट्स गॉट नथिंग टू डू विथ यू so you just smile, keep nodding your head, look at them and very gently say, sir, I am unable to answer this, I'm unable to recall it. ऐसा बोलते रहना बस, ठीक है. So it is a number of questions you are unable to answer is no indication of how your performance is in the interview. Okay, be very very sure of that. और miscellaneous questions आपका एक guess estimate भी होता है where they will ask you to estimate the number of anything, like estimate the number of Mercedes in your city, these kind of questions. So उसमें आपका main objective है to have some kind of model. How did you come to that number? Like we start with population, break it down into family size, then income groups and so on. So some kind of structure or model that you devised to come to that number. That is important. The number itself is not important. Okay. Again, overall, I would say, अगर मेरे को 4 points identify करने हो interview के लिए, number 1, talk. So usually we Indians are very reticent to share things about ourselves, but here the necessity is to talk. So talk a lot. Second, talk good. Another problem with most of us Indians, we are very very apologetic. This is a platform to sell blatantly. You are the product, you are the salesperson. So don't hold back, right? Be very explicit. You should not leave that room without having said every single thing that you have prepared for last 2 months. That is how it should be. Third, I would say talk maturely. As I said, reasonable, practical answers. Don't say sensational things. It looks really odd, very funny, especially when a very young person comes and makes tall claims. So be very measured. And fourth, I'll say talk honestly. Very important. See, when you're seated there, it's impossible to fib. You have to be a consummate con man to even think of cooking up stories on the spot. It's not possible. So any kind of exaggeration or brushing up has to be done in the preparatory stage. When you are seated there, just say the first thing that comes to your mind. All right. In terms of communication, it's very overrated. Trust me, in MBA colleges, interviews, communication is not something that they look at very closely in terms of your language skills. It's of very little priority. Your grammar, your vocabulary doesn't matter, doesn't count for much. Eye contact does, because it shows your ability to hold your audience. I personally have a lot of premium for a smiling face. I think that a smile works wonders, especially in a stressful situation. So if there are 2 things I would say, it is eye contact and smile. Voice modulation definitely helps, but that is something you need to practice for at least a month or 2 before it comes naturally to you. तो अगर आपको वॉइस मॉड्यूलेशन, थोड़ा सा ड्रामा, थोड़ा सा इंटरेस्टिंग वॉइस में बात करना है, इट स्टार्ट्स फ्रॉम टुमारो, एंड इट कांट बी डन ओनली इन इंटरव्यू. ये आपका नेचुरल स्टाइल होना चाहिए, to raise your voice, to bring it down, to add some drama to it, to talk at different pace, and what is the purpose? So that the obligation of keeping your audience engaged is yours. It is not their duty to listen to you. It is your obligation to be interesting enough so that they can't, go away from there. तो आपको अपना वॉइस मॉड्यूलेशन पे हर समय वर्क करना पड़ेगा. ओनली देन इट विल बिकम अ नेचुरल वे ऑफ स्पीकिंग फॉर यू. And also one thing I'll say, couple of small things, in fact minor things. One is posture, थोड़ा सा straight हो, rigid नहीं हो, army type एकदम, but straight हो. And hand movement थोड़ा सा हो, because it shows energy and enthusiasm. बहुत dull नहीं हो मतलब. But सबसे important आपके 2 points है, eye contact. Always address your answers to everyone. Irrespective of who asked the question, your answer should be put forth on the table for everyone's attention. So look at everyone while answering and smile. So these are 2 things I'll strongly insist on. One thing, never get into an argument, never cut their questions short. Always let them complete their question and only then you start answering. Okay, if you don't hear anything properly, there's no harm in telling them, pardon sir, repeat. Don't try to second guess their questions. Okay. So, Abhi, I think it's better that we keep it Q&A. Any quick questions that you may have? नहीं तो ये overdose of information हो जाएगा. Yes,
So
guys, I
there,
open the floor to questions.
yeah, so there's this one more question which I've come around in the interviews is why our college? Why did you choose our college to fill the forms?
Okay, so yes, I agree with you that often this question is asked, और इसका एक sister question भी है, that of all the choices that you have, 6-7 colleges, which one will you take and all that, है ना? You tell me, anyone in this world, when they ask you, why me? What is their expectation of an answer? What does the person want to hear? They want you to sing paeans of praises, है ना? गीत गाओ उसकी तारीफ में. लोग यही इसीलिए पूछते हैं ना, why us, why me, why do you choose me? So what we need to do there is say things, but again बहुत obvious नहीं हो जाए. तो कुछ तो जनरल बातें होते हैं, आपका ब्रांड, आपका लेगेसी, आपका एलमनाई. और बेटर होगा if we go to their website, pick out something which is very specific or unique about them, something that they pride themselves on, and that we are able to say. And trust me, of hundreds of candidates, hardly कोई website में जाके research करता है. One person who does that will leave a massive impression on them. They will be, overwhelmed with emotion if someone has actually taken the trouble of doing this. So if they ever get to that point where they say, why us, or anything you would like to ask us, maybe anything you would like to ask, please make sure that you tell them something that they were not expecting in terms of their college, in terms of your awareness of their college, whatever initiative they have taken. तो उनके वेबसाइट को रिसर्च करके कोई अच्छा सा पॉइंट निकाल के, that is what we should ideally talk about. ठीक है? And but one thing you never discuss is faculty, that you have better faculty and all that. That is a very sensitive topic. Never bring faculty into the question. अच्छा, one more thing that brings to my mind is, आप जो भी stories बनाओगे अपने, वो 25 stories and all, never include CAT वाला thing कि मेरा last year CAT का score ये था, इस साल ये है, so that is an achievement. So they don't like that at all. So CAT वाला angle कभी मत लाना. Also, generally speaking, never try jokes and all. Jokes, quotations, vernacular, ये सब एकदम avoid करना. No one will ever laugh, and there is nothing more embarrassing in public than a joke which falls flat. You crack a joke and no one laughs. तो वो सब try भी मत करना. And quotation नहीं करना. They don't want to hear borrowed thinking. They want to see original thinking. तो आपका thought process क्या, उसमें interest है उनको. And when I talked about those GK type questions, GD type questions, always prefer a balanced middle path. तो opinion नहीं चाहिए, analysis चाहिए. So avoid taking a very strong stand. ठीक है? Give reasons why you think, not what you think. Okay, और कॉलेज रैंकिंग का अगर क्वेश्चन आता है ना कि एबीसी हो गया, आप कहाँ लोगे, तो ये सब क्वेश्चंस एकदम अवॉइडेबल है. अगर कोई बोलता है बैंगलोर और इंदौर, तो ऑब्वियसली आप बैंगलोर बोलोगे, बट क्लोज ऑप्शंस है तो अवॉइडेबल है. यू शुड ऑलवेज शिफ्ट द ओनस ऑन समवन एल्स, कि आई विल गो बैक टू माय मेंटोर्स इफ आई एम लकी इनफ टू गेट final admission calls from these colleges, and I leave it to my mentors to decide. ऐसा करके कुछ बोल देना. Yes, next question.
So
What do we
similarly,
have next? Hmm?
similarly, as you said that which college would you choose in case of cap? I can expect that this question will come up. Then what would be the better answer?
So the thing is that the best thing is to do what I said, that tell them ki, my mentors will decide. I'm just focusing on interviews right now. But it does look ki, you are not really answering the question. ऐसा आता है इसमें. So if they continue in that, if they say no, take a few names, tell us your top 3 colleges, तो थोड़ा पहले से रेडी होके जाना है, उसमें जितने डिस्क्लेमर्स लगा सको, with my limited knowledge and whatever little I know, what have I been advised and all, so I believe Visakhapatnam and this and that, ऐसा करके 2-3 नाम ले लेना था.
Okay, so thank you.
Sir, one generic question not related to interviews but related to the process. Sir, because of the higher number of people who have given CAT this year, the percentiles and the number associated with that people, like last year there were like 2 lakh people who gave CAT, so 0.5% were like 1,000 students. Now this year it's 1,400. So can we expect the percentiles to go up at which they call, which the
It's
IMs
likely.
call?
Yes, it's likely. But again, because of the profile component for the top IMs, at least, I think it's very difficult to be sure of the exact number at which they will be giving calls. I'm sure you are all aware कि profile का weightage के कारण the predictions all go haywire. So let's see, but what you're saying makes sense. It's very much possible.
Also,
And
sir,
also one more thing, the panelists and all are usually least concerned about your CAT percentile. So they really don't care whether you are 99.9 or whether you are 94. For them, interview is independent of all this.
Also, sir, the IIM Indore has changed its selection criteria, but the CL website hasn't been updated to do this to show the same.
Okay,
Right.
I'll bring it to the attention of that person in charge.
Okay, sir. Okay.
So yes, I would like to add to Aditya's suggestion that in PDP, where we update our profiles, there's no option for updating the marks for post graduation, as I'm Ahmedabad and IIT Bombay has allowed students who have masters along with their graduation.
This I'll bring to their attention. I'm sure this can be corrected immediately.
Yes, please. Thank you.
This I'll tell them probably in a day or two. They should be able to add this.
Okay, sir.
Thanks for bringing it to my attention.
Hello, sir.
Yeah.
Sir, about the body language and the sign language, what we will be using in the interview, sir? Will you be
Pardon?
having the body language?
Body language. So I
Yeah,
covered
will-
that body language part in the last bit where
Yeah.
so this is my personal perception, and I've had a lot of discussion with professors also and other people who train for interviews. I'm very convinced that body language counts for very little, I'll say, and it helps in a very subconscious way. It's a non-verbal communication for sure, but it should not impede my thought flow, my that momentum of talking. So if it happens to me naturally, if I have those things, good. Therefore, I think that it takes a lot of practice to integrate that into my style of speaking. I cannot suddenly become conscious. Then I tell you, my whole interview will be messed up. If I suddenly become a little, aware of my hand and my body and my shoulders, I won't be able to think properly logically. So if I want to take that up as an area of improvement, I need to do that all the time. Every time, voice modulation and body language has to be a continuous evolution, learning thing. It can't be one off. So, and if I have to highlight quick points about it, as I said, posture is important. So sitting straight, just my back is aching now. So sitting straight, but not very rigid, not very tight, but just straight. Second, I said eye contact is very important. I really believe that when you're talking, you address everyone. Smiling face always helps. And hand movement, right? It shows a little bit of that energy, enthusiasm, keenness, intent, desire, willingness. So that hand movement, I think, helps, right? Not finger pointing, but hand movement. And the folder that you carry, it is not to be kept on the table. The hands are not to be kept on the table. So you don't touch the table at all, right? So ये basic चीजें हैं, और इससे ज्यादा body language पे ज्यादा ध्यान नहीं देना है. If you have some very fidgety gestures that you are wont to, like for example, some people rub their hands or play with their hair, so you can become a little more mindful of these things and avoid them as much as you can. But and also related to this, guys, don't become too conscious if we stammer a little, if we stumble a little while speaking. All these things truly don't matter. As long as we are able to communicate with clarity, are able to complete our sentences, are, they want intelligence, they want sharpness, they want alertness in brain, in mind, in way of thinking. They are not looking for style, they want substance. ये एकदम pure business के लिए हम जा रहे हैं. तो यहाँ पे वो flashy और cool and these things won't work. It's core content that they want, है ना? So trust the things that brought you till this place. Your mind, your brain will help you further also. So
Sir,
to summarize my long answer, body language is not that important. Whatever 2 or 3 things point I have mentioned, just focus on them.
sir, at least the don'ts, whatever we shouldn't do, not the do's. Do's, it comes on our own. Just the don'ts. Like as
You
you told,
suggest one
we
don't
shouldn't
to
do.
me first. What is one thing that comes to your mind that this is completely a no-no?
Um, at the start, giving a handshake to them.
Pardon? Like
Giving
offering
a
handshake?
handshake to them.
Uh, am I hearing you right? You're saying don't offer handshake to them.
Like immediately going there and having a handshake to them.
Having what?
Not do like we shouldn't give a handshake to them, right?
I didn't quite get you.
So,
But what I'm saying is that,
sir,
see,
Gokul is trying to say that offering a handshake when you just
that's what, no,
introduce-
that's what I got it. Yes, so it is not to be done. But this is my point, that most of the don'ts are very obvious and known to us. So whatever forms part of a civil interaction, uh, where the other person is slightly older to us, more senior to us, so the way we normally behave in any other slightly formal setting, all those rules apply here. So we don't need to be diffident. हमें बहुत shy नहीं होना है, right? हमें अपना presence रखना है, authoritative रहना है, but at the same time respectful भी रहना है. बस इतना ही ध्यान रखना है. उसके beyond body language का role नहीं है, trust me.
Sir, I have a question.
Yeah.
Yeah, since I am Rohtak and I am Mumbai, forms are out already. They have separate columns for your like sports, organizational, cultural, social, hobbies, and special academic achievements. And they ask to fill it in 1,000 to 1,500 characters. And suppose I have filled it all. And can I expect a question from them that tell me something which is not over here?
So you're saying in the interview they can ask you something?
Yeah, pretty much I've already written up everything that I have, and then
Yeah. See, I'll tell you in reality, what happens is that they just have a cursory glance at your forms. It is not necessary that every professor of every panel will completely, thoroughly read your form. That rarely happens. So whatever stands out for them, whatever catches their eye, it's more like that. So वो answers unnecessary का Indian colleges, I'll tell you, unnecessary का मेहनत कराते हैं. Not every panel reads that, and for good reason. They trust their instincts. They believe that they can evaluate someone better when they are just talking without going through their answers. So answers का उतना importance नहीं है. मतलब, but still we can't take a chance. We must write our answers as well as we can, but don't count on the fact that every question will come from there.
okay, sir, absolutely. Thank you.
Yes. All right, guys, then we'll wrap it up. And couple of things. One, anyone has any query, any question, any doubt, anything at all, please get in touch with me, message me, and maybe we can, get on a short call. If required, a small video consultation for 1 minute, 2 minutes, right? But let's make it very continuous, I say. ठीक है, let's not have breaks. Number one. Number two, please, I know it's a lot of pain, trust me, I've done this, I know this, but please do write your autobiography, do write those 10 answers, because only when you do that, that exploratory interview becomes truly beneficial. And third, I would strongly insist that every person, let's get that first PI exploratory interview done at the earliest. तो जितनी भी जल्दी हो सके वो पहला इंटरव्यू हम कर ले आफ्टर यू हैव रिटन योर आंसर्स, बिकॉज देन यू ट्रूली अंडरस्टैंड दैट मॉक इंटरव्यूज के लिए कैसे प्रिपेयर करना है. सो दीज आर माई 3 points. One, let's make it a very continuous interaction and conversation between ourselves. Second, please do your homework. And third, let's start, let's kickstart, let's get it going. जब तक वो पहला PI एक्सप्लोरेटरी नहीं होगा, वो फील ही नहीं आएगा कि वी आर पार्ट ऑफ समथिंग. ठीक है. All right, guys, I think we'll wrap it up. Long session. And hopefully it was of a lot of benefit to you, and we'll continue with this. All right, guys, take care, everyone.